There we go. We're live. Awesome. Right. Hello, everybody. It's another Monday, and as you can see, I'm joined by two lovely people. I am joined by the lovely Brett Lamfer as our guest today, and the not so lovely Carlo, who, as you know, is always here. Uh, we'll start off with you, Brett. How's things going all the way over in America?
Well, I'm sure that you're wanting to get to that a little bit later, but we did that ELO handicap event this weekend.
hmm
It was super fun. It was fun seeing some of the lists that people came up with.
Mm.
Most of all, it was really, really cool seeing some commanders get play that don't get play.
Yep.
And there were zero Starks, zero free folks. So was super happy about that. A little bit disappointed that we didn't see any neutrals, but yeah, only 4 factions represented. But it was great. The feedback seems to be that everybody had a great time. So I'll say the ELO handicap system is a great success.
Great success. Um,
Great.
awesome. That's absolutely obviously awesome. Is great to hear. We will obviously talk about it in more detail later on. Carlo, what about yourself?
I've been in a little bit of a slump with song. I've been having a bad week of it, particularly. I have been probably in way more of a mood than I should have been after catching the end of the developers battle report and then watching back catching some of the start and literally being so angry with it I had to turn off. I've probably thought about it way too much, because it made me just like I was so disappointed that that's what the two developers chose to show as play. But I'll try not to go down that whole big hole. I felt it was a really bad look for the competitive side of things. So we'll leave it there. But a big slump for me. I was really finding it hard to find any desire to even think about song this week.
That's obviously not great. It's sad to hear that say that. And obviously, for those of you that do watch the show regularly, for those of you that do obviously follow Song of Ice and Fire stats on YouTube, you will have noticed that Carlo didn't post a stats chat. I was
I
very
know.
disappointed.
That was the first time I haven't mustered the courage to do a stat chat video in about 3 months.
Yeah.
That's how unhappy I was.
But we will get onto it. Me and Brett were actually talking about it before the show, saying that for once the one time truly positive man Brett Lamfer was a little bit disappointed himself, weren't you?
It was interesting. Yeah, like the confusing thing for me was the devastating impact, which it's fine, you missed the trigger. I was just confused why the attack dice were re-rolled instead of just saying, well, I'm going to play it after the fact, take 2 hits and move on. I did watch the game. It was interesting. It was don't make me be negative.
I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna try. No. But I know that
I'll
it
do it
was.
for you. All right, we're gonna get into it. Right, we're gonna
Okay.
talk about it. People in the chat people in the chat are talking about it. People want to talk about the battle report. So
Okay.
I'll save you from having to say anything negative, Brett. So I caught the end of the game, right? And Michael gets absolutely battered. Come the end, Michael gets battered. Fabio is way ahead.
Yeah.
I swing right back to the start, and then watch it afterwards. And Michael's opening move is to move a unit of Stormcrow mercenaries. This is where like my rage already starts to build, right? So to me, in my mind, like some things are happening. Okay, we know like competitive players know that like the first thing you learn as a competitive player, the first like thing that anybody learns from practically your first game and from being a beginner is that outside of like Fire and Blood, where you're 12 inches apart, your first move is on the tactics board on turn 1. We can talk about whether or not letters is always the move you should take, or whether or not you should sometimes take horses, and that's like that's actually like a really competitive level of things. But to take a move on the board, you just give your opponent information and give up like the ability to take the impetus from the turn. So to me, this just means one of two things. One, Michael's either a really, really, really bad player, like literally beginner level player, or what's far more realistic is he believes that he has to not play in a competitive way to make the game enjoyable. And that is actually the more likely and negative thing that I get from the video, which is he doesn't believe he can play a competitive game and for it to be enjoyable and good to watch. So that like mismatch between competitive games are fun and what the game should aim for, and them thinking they have to downplay the level of the game to make it interesting and enjoyable to people is what actually got me really unhappy. That the designers at a core level must believe that they have to make silly moves for the game to be fun. Or other option, he thinks he's so much better than Fabio that he has to try and throw the game for Fabio to even have a chance. that's
Maybe
the
that's
other
true.
option.
Maybe Fabio's just atrociously bad. He only knows two things you can do in the game, and that's move things forward and pick Walder. So maybe that's it.
Again, that's like not again. That's another problem because then he's not understanding that he's got a terrible matchup in Targs versus Baratheons using starter box components, and if he doesn't know that he already has a massive uphill battle and he has to play as well as possible, then that's another problem. Like, how does he not know that Targs back then with base box are terrible? Like, terrible.
We'll get over that. There's Carlo's rage. Everyone's had their dose of Carlo rage for the day. Anyway,
we'll leave it there.
Carlo's going for the rest of the session. Let's just get rid of Carlo briefly, and it will just be me and Brett left.
Yeah.
No.
Just put an angry face here. Just like, you know what I mean? Just put an angry, sad face here, and we're done.
But I mean, like, and some people saying, in chat, it wasn't that bad, and some very relevant player, Jesse, saying it wasn't bad, it was just a fun game, and if it was a fun game, you know what, I'm happy that it was because they both looked like they enjoyed it. I liked the idea that they were talking about the tactics cards and the way that they interacted with the community in that sense. Like, they had this kind of like, we're playing the game and now here's my thoughts, and we're playing the game and now here's my thoughts. So yeah, I think like. Yes, it wasn't the best battle report I've seen. Yes, I would question the plays in the game, and I, as I said, like even the most positive you can be about it, I think there was elements of it that was a bit disappointing. But the point is that that's still better than not doing it at all.
Yes, wow.
There you go, Carlo.
I felt better before I watched it.
Brett felt good because he knows that the best player in the game, Michael Chanel, also loses with Targs. No, so anyway, moving on. We saw the points cost of a load of Greyjoy stuff released. If you haven't seen it, go and check out all the content. We know 3 Sales has got some like straight up react, which I believe, were you there for that one, Brett? Anyway, did you react?
No, I wasn't.
Not for this one.
Not for the Greyjoys.
No, but go check out some of the stuff he does. It's obviously great stuff. But we've also got stuff from the guild, which obviously everyone here is a member of. And we're going to be releasing some stuff on the guild coming out probably soon on all this stuff. So check that out. It's going to be whole loads of stuff on this. But yeah, we saw the Greyjoys. I'm not going to go into a massive discussion about this. But Carlo, your thoughts quickly.
Looks pretty good. I would say they look like a pretty balanced faction. Maybe Archers at 4 is a bit like, I thought we were moving to a slightly higher points cost kind of thing, or I thought we were kind of addressing like activation spam. I thought so that they're willing to put them down at 4 points, but they are pretty weak, at 6 points, 6 plus. Sorry, 6 attacks hitting on a 4+. We're talking like 3 hits average when you're not in the flank, which is not easy to force, especially if your opponent's gonna, spam the board. I think they look pretty interesting. I think Iron Makers are probably a bit weak. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the cards. If they can kind of stay on the board and stuff like that, then they could be more powerful. I think what we have is a balanced looking faction, which is probably going to disappoint a lot of people because by balanced, I mean with just your base stuff plus a few extra things, you're not going to be fully competitive, right? Like, yes, long run, they look great. They look like the kind of thing we would hope and expect for. Don't expect to be able to turn to day one, start doing well in tournaments with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think long term, that looks brilliant. Try and reserve the fact that they're not going to be game changers on the first day they release.
It is true to say though that in other factions it was the Heroes Box 1 really that transforms the faction. I think the only faction really that kind of like didn't have that rebirth in the same way was Targaryens. And even then they did have a rebirth. It just wasn't as meteoric as we saw from like the Baratheons and the Free Folk.
Well, I mean, Mother of Dragons is their Heroes 1, right?
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about Mothers of Dragons.
Will make a break. You're right. Heroes 1 will be the decider of whether or not they're mid-tier or bottom-tier. Let's not forget that Baratheons and Targaryens, the last two factions to come out that had to go through this process of being behind in terms of release schedule. The last two factions that had to do this have both just been competing for bottom place for quite a while with each other. That's what happens when you get released.
Yeah.
Greyjoys might buck the trend, but from what I've seen at the moment, they look good. I like them. Great models, good rules, look thematic. Don't expect them to not be bottom.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what about yourself? What do you think of them?
Yeah, I think Carlo already touched on probably what's the big winner of that box, the 4-point archers. If you think about it, their attack profile is just one attack dice less than the Stormcrow mercenary archers, but they can't attack with the money bags, obviously, and they don't have adaptive. So they're capable of doing some damage just simply because of the subsequent panic test. So we'll have to see just how well that translates. They look really interesting. I think if they can get some pillage tokens going, they'll be pretty tough. Their basic troops can become sort of like berserkers, but it's all going to hinge on what they're playing. So I imagine if they're playing something like Free Folk and their archers are able to peel some ranks off of raiders and pass those pillage tokens around, Free Folk might be ripping their hair out because they're dealing with archers that are as cheap as their troops, and they're dealing with pseudo berserkers running around. So it could be interesting. A lot of it too is going to be the tactics deck. I think until you see the entire deck, you see what they're working with, and you play with the deck, it's hard to say just how good or bad they're going to be.
Absolutely.
Even just looking at the tactics deck isn't enough. You've got to play with it, and you've got to actually see these combinations unfold. Because if you remember, when Colin, Red Letter Office, and I previewed the Targaryen deck, we thought that Targaryens would immediately be competitive because the deck just seemed so strong. It didn't translate that way. So for me, I'm with Carlo. I think they look good. They could be medium tier. They could be upper mid. They could be low mid. We will have to see, and it's all going to depend on what's in the deck. So that's my take on it. And give me just a second. This guy just pulled up.
It's all right.
Be right back.
So the other big thing for me, just while Brett shows us the roof of his vehicle, is actually the new mechanics they're bringing in with the relation to panic tests. Yeah, the new kind of like interactions with panic, and things don't just take a static panic mount, or you can heal off panic. The Reapers and the Warsworn adding these kind of like weird panic based mechanics into the game that aren't just the same old vicious, or I heal 2 if you fail, or you take extra wounds, or whatever. It's very much like
they sort of have
a variable effect.
They have this pseudo cut them down, pseudo what's the healing one called? Is it called Prey on Fear?
Prey on Fear.
Fueled by
No, Prey on Fear. It used to be
It
used to be called Fueled by Slaughter, I'm pretty sure. The old Rattle shirt version used to be called Fueled by Slaughter, and they got rid of it, and they brought it back, and they've called it something else.
Okay. Well, anyway, there already exists that you can heal to off of a failed panic check, and there already exists that you can do 2 extra wounds and cut them down, whatever the heal to, I forget its name. But they get this interesting kind of like mix and match of which is useful at any given time, what's the best. And so they're sort of like taking rules that exist and picking and choosing between them, which I think is which is great, and when you compare it to those abilities, you suddenly say, okay, well, now we roughly know what that ability does, and yet we have a bit more kind of choice. We have a bit more about whether or not I'm going to need an extra wound to push through a rank damage, or if I'm just going to try and heal and sustain, maybe get my own ranks back up. That kind of mix and match and choice of when it's best for you makes it far more viable than each of the individuals as they are. But you're going to have to build it up. You're going to have to get those 2 tokens. And we're going to see, like, it's going to be the real thing that the faction hinges on, which is great, is their pillage tokens. And like Brett says, it's going to be based on what faction you're playing into.
Mm-hmm.
And like how easy it is just generally to generate them, maybe how easy it is from your tactics cards, attachments, commanders, those kind of things. How many can they give you for free to get you going? Because I think that part's going to be super, super important. The Iron Makers, for example, really look like they want some tokens before any combat is fought. They're not coming in well with just a 4-up save and not a brilliant profile. So, they definitely look like they want to be the one that you want to be able to throw things on them for free.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so, Brett has returned and probably missed everything we just talked about with the variable panic damage and healing thing we just talked about, but I'm pretty sure he gets the general gist.
Yeah. I mean, panic is powerful and super swingy, so I think just about everybody knows and understands that. That's why I was picking on your free folk.
Yeah,
because of the panic damage from those archers would be the most important thing.
Yeah. I mean,
it will be a big question about whether or not they have the ability to force through such kind of panic fails, or whether or not they're going to be pretty dice reliant. Obviously, the Reapers have vicious on them, which is very, very important for changing your likelihood of failing and changing a panic token. But without any kind of tactics cards to support that, you're going to be looking for a lot of panic tokens and stuff like that. So we'll have to see. We'll see whether or not they become a panic-based faction. The Reapers obviously look like it at the moment, but we'll see how heavily they end up leaning into it.
Brett, just as as someone in the community who has spoken out against trappers a couple of times for various reasons, long-range trappers with 1 better armor, how do you feel?
They don't have hidden traps and they don't have Styre, but it's still, I think it could be, and they're not insignificant, but it's still, I think it could still prove to be somewhat of an annoyance for people that are playing them. I think, as I mentioned, Stormcrow archers in the hands of a upper to good player, not meaning to offend anybody, but I've seen a player like Ariakas make Stormcrow archers look amazing. And then I've seen players that they do nothing. So it'll be dependent on how those archers are used, I think. And coming in at 4 points, to me, they're already strong. And to me, they feel like at least 1 will be auto-include and maybe 2. So the jury will be out on those for a little bit, but they could prove to be, just simply because they're a long-ranged unit, they could be a little bit too good for 4 points. So I might end up hating them just as much. It depends, again, tactics stack and how the army itself plays. But I think, as everybody who's played, on a competitive level knows, in your mind, you're going to just go blow the archers off of the board. Not really the way it works out in real life. A lot of times, archers are the last unit standing, and they've done as much damage as they can do. So
that was at short range. Now give them long range, and they're even safer.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just
trappers, though.
Oh well, we'll get onto that in a second. But
we still haven't seen them.
I know.
I think. Unless I've been,
they're probably tomorrow.
In such a hole.
They might be tomorrow. But
yeah, unless I've been in such a mood that I've been hiding that much that I haven't noticed that trappers have been released.
No.
Or shown. Spoiled. No, yeah. Let's see what the trappers do. You might end up with those hidden traps right back. they ain't gonna have insignificant. God, please no, don't give another faction insignificant. But trappers. Hopefully, I would like them to still have hidden traps because I think it's a useful, powerful effect. But I would like it on a more expensive unit. I would like Greyjoy trappers to be significantly more expensive.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. Like a 6-point unit with it or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to absolutely trigger you, Brett. Charles Tran, Weasel Kingdom in chat has just said you don't know yet if they don't have their own version of steer. So there you go. There you go.
If they have their own, if they have that, I think I'm going to be pretty upset.
Is that going to be rage quitting against Greyjoys and Free Folk now?
I'm trying to curb some of that rage. I think I've shown my bias as a Night's Watch player that I just don't like Free Folk. So
that's fair enough. All right, moving on. Again, I don't want to spend as much time on these guys because I know that you talked about this, Brett, with Three Sails. This was the one you did talk about. It was the incoming changes to Varys and Walder. Walder and Varys are completely different. The funny thing is, I think Walder is now a tech choice where you pick him for certain matchups or certain lists, and I like that. I don't think he's necessarily good. I don't necessarily think he's overpowered or anything like that. I just think he's a tech piece. New Varys, I've looked at, and the more I think about it, the more I think he's just like, he's almost just as auto-include as he used to be, but for very different reasons. So, Carlo, quick summary for yourself.
Yeah, so Varys, I do like the change to Varys. I like that we've gone from a denial control of you just don't get to do something to you can do it, but I also sort of do it. And I do actually like that give and take of control better. You know what I'm going to get to do. I can't just like shut you off at the start of a turn from being able to take swords. I just get something in return. I get a cut rate version of all your abilities. So I do like that change. I think when you look at the change to Walder at the same time, that swords ability becomes incredibly powerful for solo hunting. But you do have to understand that your opponent's going to have to take swords to let you have that. So, but having him and having that counterplay. So we're talking specifically like currently dogs are actually sort of okay for it, but we're talking about Watch Marshal, we're talking about Jorah Solo. These things need to be scared of 3 automatic hits, right? So one use of swords is going to bounce straight back into you and possibly kill off one of your own solos. So the thing is with Varys that I think he's still very, very good, and I think he'll still get chosen a lot. Walder's entirely different. Firstly, he no longer attacks solos. So I feel like Varys therefore becomes even more important with his ability to attack solos. If direwolves stay the way they are, as actually, Leak Teddy's just put, if direwolves stay the way they currently are, then they're gonna go through the roof. Like Varys, Walder Frey was the only thing keeping them in check. And as soon as Walder changes, 2 health wolves with a 3+ save are not going to be scared of swords from Varys, and there's nothing to ping them off with in most factions. Except, getting really deep into it, Varys no longer exists as a Roose Axel denial. So I do think there are certain Roose Axel Melisandre I actually think is about to become through the roof powerful if none of those 3 have changed. Because the only thing that stopped them was that Varys completely denied everything about it. Walder, whether or not he's actually any good and anybody picks him, depends on whether or not they've managed to make some fundamental changes which stop the 3 NCU versus 3 NCU meta. If it's still a 3 NCU versus 3 NCU meta, Walder Frey is an absolute hindrance, absolutely terrible. You've just completely given up all tactics board tempo every single turn of the game.
Yeah, and it also ultimately comes down to, is this the way that they want to try and make a 2 NCU list work, and is this the way they're going to try and push for it? And I can see in some ways there are some combos. I know, Brett, you mentioned things like Bottom Bastard Girls and Dothraki Veterans with the shot charge that you can do at the end of the turn with Walder, and I think that's quite interesting, but it de facto means that you're going to be playing a short NCU list and quite a long board list, which might actually start putting in work. There are players who believe that it does work. There are players that believe and have been playing it and have seen some success. But it just hasn't been what we've recorded as the most successful strategies. So maybe this change to Walder alone is enough to at least push those strategies up a little bit to make them at least competitive across the board. So I think that would be interesting. Brett, I know you've spoken about them a lot before, and again, I'll check out 3 Sales videos for Brett's full analysis of these, but just some quick thoughts.
Well, I think Dub Order probably loves the new Walder. He's in the habit of running 3 NCUs than 1, 2 in the other. I think for him, especially playing Starks, Walder could work out really well in a 2 NCU list. If he's got the activations to wait until the end of the round, a swift advance on Berserkers into a unit, and then a free attack should get him some tempo and maybe start swinging those activations. That's one example. The other way you can work around Walder's ability is if you bring an NCU like Varys, who doesn't need to go on the board. And I know it seems kind of lame, but you can activate pass your NCU to make sure Walder has a spot. So unless the game goes to a 4 NCU meta, you activate pass with one of your NCUs. Walder's still got a spot. You've delayed the activation game. So it depends on what they're putting on the board. Situationally, Walder could be really potent, as I mentioned, in some builds. I see dragons being able to position themselves for a double shot as devastating. I see the Bastards Girls and the Veterans, if you want to go that route, being able to kind of sit back and lie in wait and then use Charging Volley at the end of the round, maybe to set up for their tempo rounds. It could be interesting. I think, but I think as we know in tournament play, not even just the first round, a lot of times round 2, round 3, maybe even round 4, you still see first activations happening on the tactics board with the swords being open, and then maybe your opponent wants to fill their hand back up. Maybe your opponent wants to heal. Obviously it's very situational, but a lot of times you still see board first. So I think Walder is a little bit of a hindrance to that style of play. So I'm really curious to see if somebody's going to find a way to break that open. I'm definitely willing to give it a try. I haven't sorted out exactly where I'm going to try to work that in. But, the thought I had with it is a Corrin. So if you just sacrifice Corrin early in the game to swing the activation advantage, then you're not really sad that you've got Walder, because now you're down to 2 NCUs. But Corrin has probably helped you take something out that's really, really nasty, and then you might be able to snowball them with Walder always getting a choice of his own. So it could be interesting, but I'm guessing that swords, letter, bag, and horses will be the most common thing for Walder to go for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you do raise a good point. The Corrin sacrifice into this almost like, I can imagine, depending on where the tempo is, but like a tempo turn 3 or turn 4 to kind of like seal the game or to swing the game. Certainly if you got first player turn 3 or something like that, you can make some pretty huge plays and just absolutely ruin somebody over. And that's usually, turn 3 is usually the first turn where you see major combat as well. So I can see something like a combo like that working really well. So yeah, interesting. I think he's got merit. I don't think he's a completely throw him in the bin, never talk to him again. But if the game changes like it seems like they want it to change, he's got merit. If the game doesn't change like Carlo was saying, he's probably just trash. And I think that's the problem. All right then.
I think he's trash.
God, I just think
Thank
he's
you,
trash.
Carlo. Carlo's crushing my dreams.
Yeah.
So the problem, so the problem that's like in my head right here. Okay, so yeah, you get to pick last, and you can do whatever you want, and you're never gonna get crowns if I don't want you to have first player. But let's just say it's a 3 NCU versus 2 NCU game. You're going first. Say I'll let you have first. You pick one of your 5 zones on the tactics board, and then I get the next 3 choices. I have any 3 I want because you're effectively playing one NCU. You don't get to activate your NCU until the end. So what that means is, more than anything else, I get to watch and wait while you have to activate things on the board. And I get to react to them by taking anything I want on the tactics board in response. The only thing you can do is activate something late and then take swords or something like that. But I feel like it's too little too late, and you've already lost. You've lost like the advantage. You've lost your position. You've lost everything off of the back of the fact that you're effectively playing a 1 NCU game if you're playing Wilder inside a 2 NCU setup. And if you're playing him inside a 3 NCU setup, you just don't get to put him on the board. So,
Yeah.
Unless something's making your opponent play 2 NCUs, he's like super, super powerful if you're playing 3 and your opponent's playing 2. But why would that happen unless your opponent's just a bad player anyway?
Yeah. I guess you could put it like that, Carlo. We will see.
We'll see. We'll see. Other changes have to come, otherwise he's worthless.
Right. So we've covered the news there. We've covered all the news per se, but we haven't covered all the news. I was lying to you completely. There was another piece of news recently announced. Okay? And how I say recently, this was approximately 10 minutes before we started Tourney Ground. Okay.
I missed it then.
Yeah.
I missed it.
So this is going to be a complete surprise to both of you, which is hilarious. And I know exactly what it is. And some of chat know what it is. Just get my Facebook up. Here we go. It's not quite centered correctly. But there is going to be a song chat community Q&A with Michael and Fabio on December the 11th, which is part of a new initiative to have regular Q&As from the developers talking with the community. Carlo, I can see you've pulled a face. That means you've got something to say.
No, I'm surprised. We've had Q&As before at like events and stuff like that. This is huge if they're directly interacting with the community. I will be so happy. The big step will be is if I ask a difficult question, I ask difficult questions. If I ask difficult question, will Michael answer?
Mm-hmm.
I really, really hope they will. If not, then at least they're trying. Oh, no. I already don't like it. It's pre-send in questions, which means they're going to pick and choose the questions they like and answer only them.
Fair enough.
Classic. That's all already happens on all the Q&As. They predefine what questions they're willing to answer.
Okay then, Brett.
Okay.
Your turn to say it, and I no doubt you're going to say much more positive things than this absolute negative Nancy over in the corner with you.
Yeah.
Go on. What's your opinions?
I think it's great. I think some people, and I've heard the community thinking that perhaps Michael's been distracted from A Song of Ice and Fire, and perhaps he's not giving it the attention that it's due, because obviously we know that it's a great game and it's got a strong following. It's arguably the best competitive game. It does have some flaws, but even with its flaws, it's still a very, very good tournament game that has managed to basically reward skilled play. So we love it as a result of that. And it just seems like Michael is maybe making some effort to engage the community and maybe answer some of these questions that haven't been answered on the forum or via FAQ. So maybe they won't answer some of the things that we really want to know, like why are there so many 3-point NCUs? why are NCUs more important than combat units? Maybe they won't answer those, but we might get some answers for something like you used Drogo's abilities on ride by attack.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we need to be doing for that and similar cards? And some of these other questions that we've had. The question that I've got, I talked to Carlo about it, but I haven't addressed with the community. In the current rule book, Varys, there's nothing that stops when your opponent claims the horse from you shifting out of combat, because there's not a rule that says the only way out of combat is with a retreat action. So while I feel very strongly that their intent is that you can't shift out of combat, somebody's going to argue with me and say, show me in the rule book where it says I can't. And Carlos over there smiling because it's going to be him. And I'm going to say, I can't show you a spot in the rule book that says that you can't do it. And then he's going to say it's rules as written and not rules as intended. So that's something that's definitely worth asking. It should be cleared up before it even becomes a problem, because prior to this, a shift was only linked to a ranged attack. Mm-hmm. And obviously you can't make a ranged attack when you're engaged. Now this mechanic has introduced something, and somebody's going to try to shift out of combat. And we should probably I'm going to send that question in just to get it nipped in the bud before Carlo shifts his Scorpion out of combat with me. Well, I guess it's never allowed to shift. The Scorpion's never allowed to shift.
Which is interesting, right? The Scorpion is never allowed to shift, which means it doesn't even work with Varys' ability because of the wording. So, yeah. An intended thing, you know? Or, anyway, I'm not going to try and work that one out.
Somebody's going to shift their crossbows out of combat, and then I'm going to be upset.
Yeah.
So Greg's saying the options in combat are to attack or retreat, but that's when you activate.
Yeah.
Right? When you activate, you can take one of those two choices. But Brett's talking about the fact that Varys can give you this bonus free ability to have a shift at any given time. And nothing in the rulebook currently says, well, I'm just going to shift that unit 2 inches. And it now meets all the requirements of not being in combat, etc. But, yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully it would be addressed in the rulebook, because these rules are designed to come with a rulebook change, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, I've got one softball question to us before we move on. I always get reminded of this, but why on earth did Fabio Curry choose to be a Stormcrow archer? That just it's the burning question, isn't it? Just,
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he probably gets picked more often than a Dreadfort captain. Does.
That's true. That's true. Even the old sculpt Dreadfort captain.
He gets fielded far more regularly.
All right then. So we finally get there. We finally get to what Brett is here for, and it's to talk about tournaments. So let's start with the French TTS event. No, we will be moving on to the French event. No, but let's talk about your ELO handicap event, Brett. It's about time. You complained at Carlo for making a bad site, so go on, tell us how it went.
Well, now I'm not going to pick on Carlo. I'm going to pick on myself, because I have been a tournament organizer twice, and 2 out of 2 times I have broken the site. So I told Carlo.
And nobody else is. Nobody else breaks it, Brett. Everybody else gets it to work fine. That's not true, actually. A Spanish event just today also managed to break the site. So you're in good company. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's a unique talent. But outside of that, where I broke the tournament by resetting the round, it was really good. It was really smooth. Everybody had a super good time. In the Discord discussion, from the feedback that I received is I will be back. We can't wait for the next one. Things of this nature. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the chat, it was just really cool to see things that you don't see, and to see them actually doing well, because Free Folk and Stark weren't dominating.
Yeah.
Chad Wallace, as I mentioned, he had a great tournament. He was 6th place, but he ran this Roose Targaryen list that would probably just get clapped by Starks and Free Folk, but he did pretty well with it. Dothraki veterans actually got to do fun things. The Bastard Girls got to do fun things, and Outriders were just, from what I understand, phenomenal for him. So I attribute that to a lack of 10 activations, so he was able to get them up and around flanks where they want to be. The games were still really close, which is fair. But from what I noticed, outside of Ariakis, just yeah, I think he train wrecked a couple of people, but Ariakis is a very good player, so I can't say I'm super surprised that he won.
Wow.
Little bit strange to see Stannis the rightful heir. I think he did pretty well overall throughout the tournament, or maybe he didn't. Did he have a bad record? Or was he
Stannis
average?
rightful heir. He had a 67% win rate in total.
Yes, that's
So
good.
that's pretty good. Of 9 games as well. It wasn't just like 3 games he won 2. 9 games,
Okay.
and good win rate.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Here's an interesting one for you. I've just noticed it here. Mentioned him earlier, Chris Tran, or not Chris Tran, very similar name, Charles Tran, Weasel Kingdom. I feel sorry for this guy. I have no idea who he is, but he should honestly just not feel too disappointed with that. Weasel Kingdom's Gregor Lannister list put 17 victory points over LJ Hugs. And I'm guessing that just Gregor went on an absolute rampage on the last turn and just clobbered people on the head. Because that is some impressive. I mean, scoring. I mean, he must have scored 9 points at least in the 8 points even in the last turn alone, which is 4 dead units and 4 zones. But I mean, that's just. I mean, I just wanted to shout that out because, I mean, I'm not going to say anything about LJ Hugs.
That's brutal meme.
That's just brutal. LJ Hugs turned up with his Grey Worm Targaryens and was like, right, let's have a fight. And Weasel Kingdom came in with Gregor and just went, all right then, boomf. Yeah, God, it's. I just noticed that one. But here we stand. Some massive scores, actually. Yeah. What do you think, Brett? What do you think of Here We Stand as a game mode? I know you picked it for your tournament. I just wanted to, just get your opinion on actually that, because it was massive scoring.
I want to really, really like it because it's okay. I'm going to be honest. I try to pick game modes that don't favor Stark Direwolves. So in Here We Stand, you only get to resurrect 1 unit. So perhaps if your Direwolves start dying, they're not the best unit to bring back. The thing with Here We Stand is some units just don't care about dying. Bastards Girls, we've seen them. They're almost better when they come back to life, especially if you're going first and they position right in the flank or right behind somebody. It's like, hey, this was better for me. I do like the game mode though. I like the kind of the chess match and the game within the game of what are you going to do with your NCUs? Are you going to start dropping them in zones and make your opponent react? Or are you going to the board first and then you're going to drop NCUs later? I like the game mode. I just think that it was better in the beta version.
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned it before, maybe just making the opponent's zone 2 instead of 3, so it's a little less swingy. But I think it was better. Originally. I don't generally like resurrecting units. Dragons were not allowed here, but I just see dragons becoming pretty problematic. I played Forioku in Wolves Howling, which we haven't gotten to that yet, but just a spoiler, I used my dragons and they're stupid in Clash of Kings. So just as anybody might have predicted, but there's just some things like those Bastards Girls too. Like they're surprisingly resilient. So it's like, yay, I finally killed this unit that can just go off at any point and really can one-shot anything. I finally have gotten rid of them, and now they come back, and I have to deal with them again. And they're even worse with a Red Priestess in them, so but I still like the game mode. I picked 6 that we were going to choose from, and I just D6'd it at the beginning of the round, and if I drew a double, which I never did, I was going to re-roll. So the dice chose Here We Stand.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that lots of people are leaning towards that mentality now, that there are enough with the beta ones that people are sort of accepting as good, even if they're not necessarily been made official. That there are at least 6 game modes that we can put out there, and that means that we can just make it a bit random. You know, nobody's playing particularly six round events at the moment, so that just leads us to be able to like have 6, rotate between them, not know exactly what's happening in what round and things like that. Last time I played Here We Stand, I played actually a Night's Watch mirror, and my crossbowmen were killed on the very first turn by John Swanbros. And they redeployed on the flank and then proceeded to shoot him every turn and absolutely wipe his army out by themselves. So it's a very interesting game mode, and like you say, destroying units isn't necessarily in your advantage. Things like crossbowmen, things like Bolton Bastard Girls, like you can be better off leaving them on the table than you are killing them.
Yeah, definitely. All right then. So we saw Ariakas win the event. With double Stannis. As we know, if you're not familiar with the Tourney Ground, if you're not familiar with the name Ariakas, Ariakas is a very good player. He's won a couple of events before. Considered very strong. Sounds like it was a great event. I couldn't stream many of the games. I was busy doing other things, but I was able to hang around in the Discord server and watch and take part in some of the discussions. And it was really interesting to see. What I really liked was they still kept the camaraderie as if it was there in the room with each other, but on the Discord server. I don't know if you felt the same, Brett, as a TO's perspective, that you still had that kind of like almost relationship build up with the players, but it did feel like it was a nice place to be.
It was. Yeah, I think using that ELO format, I think it encouraged people to be there for fun. And I know that a lot of the people are good players. I've played Weasel Kingdom before. I know that he's a good player, Charles Tran. I've played John Alexander. I know that he's a good player. I'm not going to name off everybody that was in the event, but generally the idea of it was fun. And so I think people came into it ready to play for fun, and I think that's what happened. Win, lose, draw, I think everybody had fun because nobody was really bitter because they didn't get Starked. So,
yeah,
it all comes down to the Starks, the damn Starks. Like, when you take Starks away, tournaments are fun. Imagine such a thing.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true. I think people probably just didn't feel like that they got Stark comboed and lost as a result. So
maybe
I think it was fun. People were happy.
Maybe the solution, Brett, is you need to take that big ice wall of your Night's Watch, move it to round about where the neck is, and then you get rid of the Free Folk and the Starks. All the Night's Watch can come down, and there you go. Just cut them two off. Run everyone else. Greyjoys can join in later on because we've seen them.
Leave neutrals and Dreadfort. You know they don't. We don't need them either.
Oh, the neutrals.
Are they a faction, Mickey? Are they a faction? Do we call them a faction these days?
I mean, are they a faction? That's a good question.
I'm actually disappointed that I didn't play in this event because I really wanted to play Roos. I really wanted to play Roos neutrals. I've been tinkering around with it in some casual games, and they're fun and challenging. So I can see why the neutral loyalists just keep playing them. I'm just so disappointed we didn't see any neutrals. I even invited ORJ Bill, but he had something going on. Otherwise, we would have had a neutral player.
Hey, you had a dropout early on, right? And you asked members of the guild if anyone could step in, and I had to go and check to see if I was doing anything, if I was free. Unfortunately, I wasn't. But if I was free, it was going to be a Vargo neutral list coming at you, because I am on the Vargo train. I freaking love Vargo. I'm on a mad hype with him at the moment. But yeah. So it was a good event. A good event. From what I saw and from where it ran, I think it was good.
So we say that, right? But you know, I'm always here asking the really heavy-hitting, hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
Were you happy with 16 people, Brett? Do you think that the whole format, the one-day system, the ELO system combined together, which parts of it, any parts of it. Do you think was it as successful as you wanted it to be? Is there hype for tournaments at the moment, or are things really flat? Like I have to say, I wouldn't have been over the moon with a 16-player tournament. So what can we do? What can we do to get more people to play? That's the eternal question. Like, how do we get people to engage?
I think throughout the course of it, I was up to like 20, and then I was seeing people drop, and then someone else would join. I was really hoping for 24, maybe more. I was hoping that format would draw some more casual players in. Dave and Justin from Small Council were supposed to play and then didn't. Dave didn't get any TTS practice in with me, so he didn't play. Justin,
Brett absolutely calling them out by name here, calling out every. That's it. That's how we get more people to engage. We call them out. What are you doing? Where are you? Why didn't you
exactly.
enter?
Justin and Dave, they let me down. They didn't. They dropped out of the Ohio one too, so they're on my bad list right now. But no, I think it could have been better. But I'm hoping that maybe some of the hype from this one will help promote the next one. When some of the people that participated, if I posted on Facebook again, asking people to join, maybe with some of the guys cheerleading, saying, yes, we played in the last one. Yes, it was very fun. Yes, the ELO handicap system helped. Even if it's not perfect, it helped because we didn't have to play broken lists. Nobody dared to bring a broken list because they knew that they would be handicapped, and there was no point. So hopefully it can pick up steam and become a better thing the next time. And I think that it can. So I just have to find another reason to well, I guess I don't have to ban Mother of Dragons, because by the time it comes around again, she'll probably be top 5 because she's like 17th now.
But let's have a little look, shall we? She's doing well. I think, did we check before? I think me and Brett were talking before. I think she's 17th now.
She was 17th.
What's her rating?
She's currently ranking 33.
Plus 33.
She's plus 33, which puts her within the targs at. Well, she's. I mean, that's scary as all hell. She's gained in 30 days 100 ranking on her own. In the targs alone, targs are still minus 27, which means that Daenerys actually has a positive rating of 61, but is in such a bad faction that she still doesn't even make it into the top 10.
Yep.
She would, if she was taken alone without the function of Targaryens, she would literally be 10th.
Yep. She'll be there. It fixes itself.
That's scary.
Yeah, she's scary. I think. I don't think she's positive for the Targaryen faction. It's play her or lose. Win with her or lose without her. So, yeah, we'll see. Targs are actually in a rough spot, despite actually finally coming off the bottom of the rankings. I don't think they ended up in a more positive spot for having done so.
No, I don't think people enjoy playing against dragons. That's the problem. Sporioku, obviously a very strong player. If it had been a game mode besides Clash of Kings, I think with a charge, an overrun, and then another dragon-breathing fire, perhaps Dracarys, I took out 2 of his heaviest hitting units right in round 2. It's just not a lot of fun, and I feel badly when I play them. But somebody has to go out and prove that they're busted, because there are still, I was talking to Mickey about this, there are still people in denial. Like, dragons are not that bad. Yes.
Similar to before stats came along, people were in denial that Starks were the best faction. They were in denial about the fact that Direwolf spam was the best way to play the game, competitively speaking, and that just 10 activation Starks were balanced, and that But the thing is that until you've been absolutely smushed by a really good player who knows how to use them, you think that it's playable. If you play against average players, nothing against average players, but they don't exploit the game and the balance in the same way. And yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
I have a 100% win rate against dragons, so
So do
I know
I.
what you're talking about, right?
including me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to admit, I've never faced
Just
3
calling them out.
dragons. I've never faced 3, but I've killed 1. And actually, I think that's the biggest difference. Actually, 1 dragon in a list actually is
One
manageable.
dragon's weak.
No
dragon's
no
big.
fire made flesh. That thing's killable.
Yeah,
You know?
one dragon's not bad at all. 1 dragon at 9 points is not bad. I think the problem with Mother of Dragons is you're essentially facing 46 points, because I think dragons at 9 points is fair. And you can argue that, they're not worth 9 points because they're not defensive enough, but look at their offensive output, and they never take panic. And that was a big thing for Forioku, because it was like, well, you've got Ghost and my dragon's on an objective. My dragon has wounds, and I can't possibly fail a panic test. There's nothing you can do to contest this objective. Absolutely nothing. You can't get lucky on a panic test ever.
Yeah.
Vicious is nothing. It's something against what the Mother of Dragons is in, but it's basically nothing when fighting the dragons. And it's just, I don't want to harp on the developers, but it was just an interesting choice to make them completely immune to panic damage, because how many times have we seen Gregor die to morale, and he's morale 3? He shouldn't be failing, but a lot of times it's like, that's what I have to do to deal with the mountain that rides. I have to make him fail a panic.
I feel like it's always a cop-out when you make a unit completely immune to core rules that other people are bound by. And they ignore whole swathes of the rules. They ignore movement rules by large part. They ignore panic rules by large part. They ignore to hit. Like, what? They ignore to hit, so weaken tokens don't work on them. They already ignore morale, so panic tokens don't work on them. Just making yourself absolutely not have to partake in multiple rules of the game and ways that the game is played and interacted with is not enjoyable. It really reminds me of like Space Marines in 40k, where it's just like, we just ignore all that part of the rules, and that's what makes us strong. It's not we have better stats. It's not that we're better than you. It's that there's just a whole section of the rules that we don't do, and that's a bit of a cop out, in my opinion. I think it can be done much, much better.
Yeah.
That being able to retreat through an enemy unit with hit and run is just filth. It's bad. If you get it right and you hit and run at the end of the round, and then you're behind them when you're going first, enjoy the -4 panic test to go with your 4 to 6 wounds that you took. So it's pretty rough.
Charles trying in the chats, a perfect example is that the Giants have limits on their interactions with morale. They have a hard cap on how many wounds they can take. That is a much more elegant implementation than to just say, I'm immune to morale. Like, I'm immune is, it's just, you just make Lannisters worthless into that matchup. Do you know what I mean? As soon as you say immune, it makes it your opponent not have any options. Like, at least you can try for it. At least you can roll for it. As long as you leave there an option. Just make yourself really resistant to it, not immune.
I agree. And in a way, it rewards smart play, because it's a valid strategy, and sometimes it takes some setup and commitment to it, but repeatedly forcing panic tests, yes, while it's annoying when you fail and you take wounds, but that's a valid strategy that's using the rules of the game, and taking that away from a way to do anything about dragons is rough. Because giants can take 2 wounds, but 2 wounds goes a long way in killing a giant. So you're rewarded for making them take those panic tests, and maybe something works out. But I agree with you. It's an interesting and weird interaction that they don't even have to bother with taking them.
But
There's
I
no suspect.
still personally think top tier Starks beat them. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
see.
We'll see if we see any changes. I don't think that actually it's like play her or lose, but she's up there. She's one of these top contenders now, and she absolutely dunks on some factions which weren't doing great anyway, and that's the saddest thing.
She's still 100% win rate against Baratheons last I looked, and 27% ish against Starks.
Wow. Yeah, that tells you it all. I hadn't even gone to look at the stats. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that she had 100% win rate against Baratheons, but there you go. Like
last I looked, it was 100% against Baratheons. Just lost to a neutral player. It was actually Winter is Coming, practiced against Mickeaster for our round 1 of Forioka's event, Wolves Howling, and that's where the neutral win came from.
Yep.
70% win against Lannister. As you say, dropped in neutral, but 25% Starks. The next lowest is Free Folk at 50, which probably is no surprise to anybody, and Night's Watch at 70.
Trappers versus Dragons, pretty decent matchup. I favor Free Folk when played well. Starks probably beat them. She just dunks on everybody else. She just absolutely makes everybody else worthless, and that's a problem.
Now, we will move on though, because I think it is relevant. I did say we'd stop by the French TTS event. They're down to 4 players, and in somewhat, let's have a look. Tonio Scorpio, there's a name we've heard before. Harmasteer, Free Folk. Shablu, Targaryens, Mother of Dragons, and Mother of Dragons.
Yeah,
he's up there.
Why not?
Bob Bernard, Targaryen, Mother of Dragons, Queen of Marine, throwing a little bit of a different one in there. And finally, Decipher with Stark and Howland Roderick. It's 2 top tier builds probably. In the Scorpio, Tony Scorpio kind of like Harmer kind of spam style list. Opting for the Followers of Bone surprisingly, but it is the same kind of core list. And a steer list that we've seen before with like Bonelord's Chosen Savage Giants. And Decipher's like Howland, let's just call it Berserker meta list, and a Roderick list. Again, looking at the Berserkers as a mainstay with some Tully Cav. And then you've got Mother of Dragons and a Queen of Marine list, which is desperately trying to hold in their 8 activations. I think we're guaranteed... Yes, we are guaranteed a Targaryen in the final. It is Tonio Scorpio versus Decipher. The Free Folk versus Stark is one semi, and Shablu versus Bob Bernard is the other semi. So a Targ will be in the final of the French TTS.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Will we get a Targaryen winner?
We might get our first Targaryen winner of a tournament, and I bet you any money you like it will be majority playing Mother of Dragons.
Yeah,
of course.
It would be. I'll
be super interested. I assume they're going to go Dragon Mirror, right? They're presumably they're going to go Dragon Mirror, right? And I think it's actually quite an interesting game. Similar to the way that the high activation Stark Howland Mirror is actually a very, very tactical game, very deep. I'll be super interested to see that Dragon Mirror get played, and I think that it's a whole new ball game. It's an interesting game, right? The game is actually very tactical and very, very interesting when there are 2 equally balanced, very, very powerful lists. But it's terrible when a really powerful list's just dunking on a B tier list. But what we've got some good players playing top tier lists, and this is actually 4 great lists, 4 great players throwing down. So it's super interesting.
Yep.
I like it. The funny thing is the Dragons can't one-shot each other, and they're guaranteed to 2 shots. So a little bit of the D3 is taken out if you disregard healing. 2 shots, they're dead. Nothing they can do about it. 1 shot can't kill them. Nothing they can do about it, except for healing. But that's interesting. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that. And as we said before, guys, all of the French games are streamed by the French community, and they are available on YouTube. If you want to find where the YouTube channels are, you can just head over to the Battle Reports page on Song of Ice and Fire Stats. And, I'm just going to search Mother of Dragons because that seems... that seems fairly clever, doesn't it? Targaryens, Let's see what it comes up with. There we go. Channel. So you got the Song of Ice and Fire channel there, .fr, and you can find all of the quarterfinals and all the round games will be streamed from these guys. They're doing a great job. I wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah,
they're doing a great job.
Absolutely. Loads and loads of content coming out of that event. Super interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. All right then. Did get a question in chat. Do you think that the descent of Brathians is due to mammoths and dragons? Is it really, do the recent losses really drop their faction that far? Now, I'll refresh this page to try and get those ratings up for us, because as you can tell, with all the streaming, I can't quite. There we go. I'm starting to get some results through now. Carlo, Brathians have been in freefall.
Yes. They haven't fallen that far. Actually, it's interesting. They have fallen. They're now in last place. They were in fourth place. There's a lot of things going on at the same time, and their rating has gone down to -54, but they were only ever like 0 rated before that, right? So yes, they've dropped 54. Yes, that is quite a lot. Yes, that is them getting dunked on by dragons and by mammoths. But there are lots of other things going on. Obviously, they're bottom because dragons have come up past them. So they haven't fallen as far as it looks like they have, because they've just, they've been going down while everybody below them has been going up. Night's Watch also rose past them. Night's Watch used to be in 5th behind Baratheons, but Watch Marshal's done absolute wonders for them. I think Night's Watch might even be up into 3rd place now. They're looking very, very viable again. That part's brilliant. But pretty much, yes, the system reacts that fast and that well to a change in the meta, which is them currently getting dunked on. They're not gonna keep falling forever. It just very quickly corrects to what their current win rate is, and their current win rate is probably about 10% less than it used to be. Mickey's still desperately trying to load this page, but clearly,
it's not like
it doesn't want to find the results for you. It's something of a problem with there's too many results. There's too many results and it's not loading very well. I very much would need to do something about that. You should stop just reloading the page in that way. You should probably refresh the page. It's actually there's also a problem with the stats builder when you try and get list advice for the factions that have lots and lots of lists. It's actually a memory caching problem, which I don't particularly know how to fix right now. But basically, actually, you've called up so many results that your Google Chrome actually runs out of memory.
Oh wow! You need to fix that.
Yeah, there's a boring bit of coding for you.
Go.
The memory locks out because you've got too many results. You've got too many results, and it's trying to calculate too much stuff.
Fair enough. But anyway, yes. Interesting thing there from so not seen in the chat before. Cara Sparrow, mammoths and dragons will get nerfed by the time COVID vaccines are out. Yes. Now, if you live in the UK, that means potentially next week when the army come around and inject you in the arm, whether you like it or not. If you live in the US, that could be, well, Brett, 2040. We'll see. God, we've somehow managed to. COVID's coming to bloody Tourney Ground. It's awful. Right. Anyway.
COVID's always been a part of Tourney Ground.
It is. There are other ongoing tournaments.
Tourney Ground's only existed as long as COVID has. So
it's actually
COVID
younger. It's actually younger, right?
We can't bully it out.
We're actually a child of COVID. Right. So there are lots of obviously ongoing events going on. I saw this one pop up the other day. I have no idea what it's about, so let's have a little look. But I thought it was interesting. It's an unranked campaign play game series where someone wants to play a campaign series online with people. Big name Decay's involved. It looks like some of the German players are involved. I am 90% sure, guys, if you want to get involved, talk to the German guys. They are a great community over there, and I'm sure they're doing it for some interesting fun. Everything, no holds barred, just absolutely go for it with a campaign, with all the new stuff, see how it goes. So yeah, and there is obviously 3 Cells to Season 2, and that's about it. But we have got one last big announcement to make, which I know Bartender has been waiting in the wings to make sure this works properly. And I say waiting in the wings. Let's see if I can make this work straight away. But let's hide this. And we're going to have to hide this briefly. This is going to look awful very briefly. There we go. We've got double Brett. We've got double Brettception. So let's hide single Brett. Right. So, this is TTS as you know it. As you know, guys, we revealed a couple of weeks ago that there were people doing some 3D modeling. Yeah? So now...
We've gone back 2 weeks.
We haven't gone back 2 weeks, no. So I've got a list here. I've got some, I don't know, Starks. Carlo gave me the lists. I have no idea what they are. But there we go.
That's an absolute powerhouse Roderick list, thank you.
I know, right?
Double
so
Cavaliers, Roderick in Bowman. Oh, this is beauty.
I'm just going to get rid of it for a moment, though. I'm just going to spawn it in. Now, using the Song of Ice and Fire dash spawner, of course, it will work this way. Other updates are coming, so the trays, when you pull them out, and everything will be sorted. But for now, it's exclusive to the stats builder. Import, and give it a second, and voila. We have a full army of lovely modelled Stark units and some NCUs to go alongside it. Now, those of you who are eagle-eyed may have just spotted loads of things over there. So, sod it. Let's get rid of these not these Baratheons and Targs, these Lannisters. Let's go for the classic Lannister matchup.
Beautiful Lannister.
And we've got
the classico.
We still haven't got Baratheon banners. We need to get them sorted. Knights of Castle Rock, Lannister Guardsmen, and more Lannister Guardsmen, and unluckily Bolton Cutthroats, which we are sorting out as we speak. But it turns out that our friend Bolton Skincare, Chris, he cannot get his pictures to render very well at all. So they're just really sad. Let's throw them away.
Guy's a professional videographer, and he can't get a 3D model to render.
I know, right? There are loads of stuff thinking. How have we not got Pycelle? Bartender, we need to get Pycelle. Right. Or maybe Pycelle's just not coded in right. But we've got all of these models and more. You want Drogon, you want dragons. There's mountains that ride. There's flayed men. There's giants. Everything you could want at your fingertips now. I mean, I never realised this. Just a quick stop by here. This is Sirio. This is Great John Umber. Now, I know this guy's on a bit of a rock on the base, but he just looks so much bigger. Jesus. Anyway.
Yeah. Are we sure that's not maybe a 3D image size problem?
No, it's not. He's absolutely massive. I think it's just the way he's on the base.
He's bigger than Hodor.
I know, right? He's actually bigger than Hodor. Maybe he just was bigger than Hodor. Maybe he's just a big guy. Anyway, 3D models are in. Models are usable. As of, let me just check when Bartender sent me this message. At 11 minutes past 8, that was 3 minutes ago, the mod is now live. So guys, if you want to use 3D models in your TTS games, it's all available there. You can hit the button in the top left corner. We are aware that some computers won't run the 3D models very well. That little top button in the left will toggle between miniatures and the standees when you load the lists in. It doesn't do it mid-game, but if you toggle to the standees and when you load the list in, it will top the old standees for you. So don't worry if your computer can't handle the miniatures, but I'm going to be playing miniatures. I don't know about you guys.
Are we pretty much set then? A few things missing, but any kind of calls, neutrals still a big go-to, or
the neutrals are on their way. We've got the neutrals like processing. We just can't. We're getting quite a few errors with the ones we've got. So we'll have them ready. We think this week. Baratheon's still got some of the more basic units like Stag Knights, believe it or not, and Sentinels still to go in.
Crap.
I know, right? But we've got a lot of the other stuff. Free Folk, I need to get around to actually getting my elite Free Folk units in there. So Cave Dwellers, Follows a Bone, that kind of thing. We've got everything Stark, and I think we've got most Lannister. And we're getting there with Targ. So, yeah. It's all there, guys. Have fun. Enjoy playing with some actual painted models. This is the closest thing you can get to table gaming in 2020. Boom. Right?
Sad.
It is sad, isn't it? So, I would say that's nearly done, but even more things to talk about. I've been all fancy, and I'm going to do this really fancily. You may be thinking, what's this in the background?
Whoa.
The World Cup.
Big moves.
the World Cup 2021, because it had to get moved, starting January 10th. Yeah,
Flawless.
nailed it. Absolutely nailed that. We've seen people talk about it in chat. I know that some of the guys in your tournament, Brett, were supporting it. And big shout out to everyone who's been like getting people involved. It is coming. Get yourself signed up sooner rather than later. We need to make sure we know the numbers. We need to know what's happening with the tournament so we can do a lot of organising, a lot of logistics of different things. Yeah. We want to try and hit these players soon. You know, if we can get 100, 120, we'll be all right. If we can hit 150, yeah, happy days. If we can hit 200, Carlo will take his top off on Tourney Ground for you live. Yeah?
If you want.
It's happening. I've decided.
I'm safe.
That's what's happening.
No way do we hit 200.
No.
No way do we hit 200.
It's fine.
I'm safe.
It won't happen. Plus, we'll all just laugh at it. If it does happen, we'll all just laugh at you anyway. And I'll have to get Bolton Skincare on, and you can do a guns off.
I mean,
actually,
Chris Bolton Skincare only ever flexes because he's scared of me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
actually, can we do that? Can we get Brett? Can we have you, Bolton, and of course Carlo on one day just to flex at each other for an hour? I'm pretty sure people would watch. I'm pretty sure people would watch that.
Yeah.
Probably more people than watch Tourney Ground.
That's not fair. They both play in a game store, which is also like a game store come gym, and I live in this chair.
All right then, guys. Well, I am glad we could bring you this to you guys. There will be some more stuff coming from Bartender and more stuff coming to this mod in terms of miniatures as well. The World Cup, guys, please get yourself signed up. Get involved with the World Cup. We want it to be big. We want it to be massive. And more importantly, actually, to end on like the note of the day, I think, is we want to be able to support the local game stores out there that have been suffering. Yeah. You know, making sure that those local game stores still get a cut of the pie that unfortunately doesn't exist at the moment due to COVID. So if there's a game store you want to, support, if there's things that you want to get involved, let us know and we'll see what we can do to support those particular places. But until then, Brett, thanks for being here. Are you glad you came on?
Of course.
Good stuff. Any last words of wisdom from you, Brett?
Did I go away?
I think your camera stopped. I think it's all right.
I'm back. No, I think as many people as can, my fellow Americans, should sign up for the World Cup. We need to represent, do good things. There's a tiny little battle of the Americans and the Europeans, and we're probably pretty well losing that battle. So we need to turn that around. I need your support. But no, it should be fun.
Cool.
Yeah, just sign up. Just
sign
up and play.
Sign up and play.
Sign up and play. Check out an ELO handicap event. Interact with the people in the community who seem to like it, but we got to push through it until the game gets changed. I know that the meta is a little bit rough and repetitive right now, but we'll get through this. Just stick with it.
We will
Gotta
indeed.
get through this.
Carlo, any last words from yourself?
No, I think Brett really nailed it on the head when we talked about the ELO event earlier. Word of mouth is super, super important for the TTS side of things and for us to keep growing. I feel like the TTS community is really stalled ever since the completion of the Super League. I think there's really not been a lot there, and that we need to come back together, need to keep growing. And if we're not growing, then we're sort of dwindling away. People will leave all the time, so you need to try and constantly get your friends to play, convince them to enter tournaments and stuff like that. Otherwise, the community is going to dwindle away. So try and get them on any event. Obviously, I would love you to sign up to the World Cup, get all your friends to sign up to the World Cup, but just any event, go out there, join it, play, be part of it, keep the game going, because we're gonna have to bridge the gap between Simon really sorting their shit out because they look like they're trying. They definitely look like they're trying. So if we can still be there and still be active and still be a great community when they're ready to come and pick us up again, then we'll be in a much better place than if they have to like build from the scratch.
Yeah. And I'll leave you with this final picture, guys. This is Walder with the crying face of a man that has been nerfed. Thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in for this week of Tourney Ground, and we will catch you, no doubt, same time, same place next week. Take it easy, guys.
Yep. See ya.